I played small by reducing my gifts when I was in rooms with people that was intimidated by it. What is going on, my beautiful people? Welcome to yet again another episode of the Pivot Mindset Podcast. My name is Justin. I am your host. And man, super excited to have you joining us on another episode of the Pivot Mindset Podcast. If you're checking this podcast out for the very first time, we just believe here that life is all about the pivots, and those who decide to make the pivots decide to become successful. That success is a deliberate decision that we make each and every day based on the kind of pivots and adjustments that we make, really to live the best version of ourselves, really to live a life radically wide open, really chasing after the purpose that God has called us all to. So, man, super excited to have you joining us. Just some quick housekeeping. Let me say it that way. If you haven't done so already, please give this podcast a rating and review. Seriously. If you haven't rated this podcast on Apple, on Spotify, we would really appreciate it. It's really the only ask, for real. I think for us, just being able to inform other people on the information and what we're spitting out there and what we're putting out there, and making sure that we just share the love, right? And it helps me, for real. It just helps me get the word out there. There's really the only way we only do organic kind of marketing for this podcast. So, so just wanted to let you know, if you're on YouTube, if you're on Spotify, if you're on Apple Music, or Apple Podcasts, I should say. But yeah, let's dive into it, man. So today's episode, I'm coming for your life. I'm probably going to be coming for your life in this episode. So I hope you got some time. I hope you've put on your steel toe shoes, because I'm going to be stepping on your toes probably all episode. But we're going to just go for it, man. And I think I'm going to be stepping on your toes because I stepped on my toes a lot when I thought about the episode and what we're going to be talking about. And really the topic today is the subtle ways that playing small is going to be holding you back. So I think a lot about life and what I want to accomplish and what I believe God has called me to. And in that, there is a version of that that you have to make the decision if you're going to continue to either play big, which to me, playing big is playing to the version of you that God saw before you were placed on this earth, right? The Bible declares that he knew you before the foundations of the world, that he predestined you before the foundations of the world. And so if there's a God, if God predestined you, meaning he gave you a purpose before the destination, before he placed you in the earth, that there is something that's on your life that he felt was important to implement and put you here. And so if that's the case, I think we should really make sure that we spend our entire life trying to figure out what that purpose is, and not just figuring out what that purpose is, but doing what we can to live a life maximizing that purpose. And so when it comes to maximizing that purpose, it means how are we playing to our bigness, right? Like, we serve a big God, and because God is so big, he didn't create us to be small people. And I'm not saying small people as in you have to be the top 1%. Doesn't mean that you have to be a millionaire or billionaire. But I do believe that whatever God has placed you on earth, as far as the problem that he placed you on earth to solve, that you solve that in a big, real way. And so I started to think about my life, and I started to think about just areas in my life that I've played small in. And I'm going to give a couple of them to you. I played small by reducing my gifts when I was in rooms with people that was intimidated by it. So I used to, when I would get in rooms and people would say something about my gift, I would try to play it down because they were intimidated by it. And I wanted to make them feel super comfortable, right? I wanted to aid in their comfort and not be my full authentic self, because I felt and I knew that would actually make them uncomfortable. So that was playing small. I played small by settling for somebody else's dream for my life instead of my dream for my life. That was a super small play, right? I played small by trying to live a lifestyle that I couldn't afford. I thought that fake it till you make it was the way to success, right? I was playing small by trying to be like everyone else, not knowing the greatness that was on the inside of me. And today I really want to call that person forward in this episode. Like whatever, like there is definitely an area that you're playing small in. And I just want to call that person forward in this episode because I believe if we continue to live a life playing small, that we won't ever accomplish the things that God has placed on our hearts. And so what area in your life, if you're honest, are you playing small in? Don't hit me with the I'm playing big in every area. Don't if that's what your first thought was, you got to do some mindset work. Because what that tells me is that you have a level of arrogance that you don't even know how to assess when you are fumbling, right? Like you don't even know how to assess when you aren't hitting the mark. And so I think it's really important to be honest with where we are. And so I really want to encourage that person. I want to encourage you to squeeze out of life everything that God has for you, right? Squeeze everything out of life that also you desire, all right? And so there was a book, and I forget the title of the book, but there was some research done, and it was done by a hospice nurse. And the number one dying wish of this hospice nurse, or the number one dying wish that this hospice nurse found that most of her patients had is there was like 5 of them, or maybe even more. But the number one wish was that people as they were giving their life up, as they were looking at their last days, they had wished that they had the courage to live a life true to themselves and not the life others expected of them. I'll repeat that again. The hospice nurse, when interviewing and talking to all the people who were at the end of their life and learning what they were processing through and hearing, what the things they're challenged with, what they were struggling with the most, the number one regret that they had was that they wished they had more courage in life and that they lived that life true to themselves and not a life that other people expected of them. And so I asked you that, right? I asked you in this episode, man, are you living a life really that's true to you? Or are you living a life based on what other people expect you to live, right? Like whose expectation of life have you connected yourself with? Because this is so important, because if we don't get really clear on this, we'll find that we're playing way smaller than we should be. Because what more than likely happens is you're playing to a game that you're really set to lose at. And I want to make sure that you're playing a game that you're set to win at, all right? And so I believe Charlie Munger said these things, and I'm going to reiterate them because I love the reverse engineering of this. But it's like, if you wanted to play small, right? If you wanted to intentionally play small in your life, here are 7 things that I would do to intentionally play small. One of the ways that I would, like, if I were to, and again, what you should do as you're listening is to just reverse engineer it, right? Like when I'm getting ready to say, think of the opposite, okay? So if I wanted to intentionally play small in my entire life, here's a couple things that I would do. One of the things that I would do is I would do drugs and I would drink tons of alcohol. Like I would be so medicated with drugs and alcohol that I would never really process through my feelings, my emotions, and I would never really be 100% all into the rooms that I were in, because I would be so high. I would be so disconnected from those spaces, right? I would drink tons of alcohol. Here's number 2. I would blame everybody else for my problems, and I would never take ownership of those problems. Everything that was happening to me, everything that happened in my life, my bank account, my car breaking down, me being late for work, me getting fired from my job, my business not being successful, I would always blame that on somebody else. I would never take ownership if I wanted to ensure that I was playing small. Here's another way. I would have tons of resentment with people. I would hold on to pain in any mistreatment that I've ever felt. I would hang on to things that happened to me 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. I would hang on to that mistreatment, and I would resent those people for the rest of my life if I wanted to build a pattern of living a life that was extremely small. Here's another one. I would be unreliable. I would be flaky. I would make commitments that I could not keep if I wanted to ensure that I would play small. I would overspend all of my income. Every dollar that I made, I would spend twice as much. I would buy cars that I couldn't afford. I would live in houses that I couldn't afford. I would try to take chips and I would put it all on credit, and I would rob Peter to pay Paul. And I would live such a overspent life if I wanted to ensure that I would not be successful. I would only learn from my mistakes. I wouldn't learn from other people's mistakes. I would only learn from the mistakes that I made. I would never read books. I would never see people around me in my circle and see what things that they've experienced and how I can learn from them. But I will only say, hey, nope, that's your experience. I can only learn from my own mistakes if I wanted to continually play small. And then the last one, I would quit. And this is a huge one. I would quit after my third or fourth major failure in life. If I wanted to ensure that I would be consistently playing small, I would quit after my third or fourth major failure in life. Right? I would quit, and I would actually start to count my failures. I would, every time I'm thinking about failing, or I look like something is starting to fail, or something isn't going the way that I want it to go, I would start to count and add, like, man, how many failures have I had today? How many failures have I would count, and I would assure that after my third or fourth failure that I would fail. And I would start to keep metrics, and I'll keep tabs open for all the failures that I had, right? Like, those are the 7 things that I would do if I wanted to ensure that I was playing small. And so the homework for you, right, is just to reverse engineer that, right? If you are living, if that's your truth, if any one of those things are your truth, those are signs that you're playing small right now, right? And so I'm here to strip the limits off of you, right? I want to strip the limits off of the person that you put on you, because truly the world has enough limits that it's here to place on you. The world has tons of limits that it's here to give you, but I'm here to strip the limits off of you, right? Like, you can't control the limits that the world puts on you, but they also don't matter. But you can control the limits that you put on you. And I think the limits that you put on you are the most significant limits. Those are the limits that circulate in your brain every single day that you wake up. Those are the limits that you see in the mirror. Those are the limits that you see when it's time to go for it. Those are the limits that you see when it's time to do something big, when it's time to walk in faith, when it's time to walk in purpose, right? And so I've got a question for you, right? And I kind of posed this question in a crowd. But if somebody said, hey, how much money do you want to make in 10 years? And you thought about that number, right? Like, I want you to kind of get that number in your head. 10 years from now, how much money do you want to be making per year? I'm going to give you like 3 seconds to just get that number in your head. 10 years from now, how much money would you like to be making per year? All right, you got that number? Okay, perfect. Now, what if I said you had to do that in a year? What is your likelihood of achievement? Like, if whatever number you said you would like to be making 10 years from now, what if I said you had to accomplish that number in 1 year? What's your likelihood of achievement? What is it, 10%, 20%? What's the percent for you? I'll give you a couple seconds. Think about it. Think through it. And then here's the next question that I have. What likelihood of achievement, if all of your family died, if you didn't hit that number? Everybody that you love dies if you don't hit that number. What now is your new likelihood of achievement? But most people that I've asked this question to, that number goes from about 20 to 50% to 100%. And when I ask them why that number changed, they say, because I'll just figure it out. Like, what they immediately do is they move past all of the limiting beliefs. They move past all the things that's holding them back. They move past all the things that are stopping them. And they just say, I'm going to figure it out. So the question that I have is, if you can figure it out when everybody that you love, life is on the line, why can't you figure it out when your trust and your desires and your heart is on the line? Why can't you figure it out for you? Why can you only figure it out, or you have that just figure it out mentality when other people's lives are on the line? And so, man, I think this is huge. Just like playing small. I think that the world celebrates the people that play very small. And I just want to get you really encouraged, get you fired up, get you really charged up, because I want to encourage you, man, that you can play bigger than you think you can, and that you can live a bigger, audacious life than you think was possible. All right, so I'm going to give you 4 major things that hold people back from playing bigger lives. And some of these may be yours, but I'm gonna just give them to you, okay? So the first one that I believe that hold people back from playing a bigger life is a lack of clarity. A lot of people hide from their dreams by keeping them vague and unclear. Like they live in the unclearness. And the truth is they know what they really want, but instead of making sure that those things become clear, they just sit in the vagueness of them. Because if it's vague, that means that I don't have to accomplishment. That if my vision and my what my desires are, if it's vague and it's unclear, that means I don't have to move in faith and I don't have to be courageous about taking action on them. And so I just like to stay in the vagueness of it. And so you say things like, I'm not sure, when you really are. You say things like, I don't know, when you really do. Because for you, that vagueness allows you not to take action. It suspends your courage and it suspends your intensity and it suspends your desire to take the next step. And so I think that's one of the biggest reasons people hide in unclarity. People hide behind clarity, okay? So the second one is, I think spotty routines is another way that hold people back from playing bigger lives. If you look at your calendar, most of the time, for most people that are playing small, it doesn't aim towards the life that you want. Like if you look at your calendar, if you look at your habits, if you look at your routines, they don't often aim towards the life that you desire. If I see your calendar, I'll be like, wow, I know who you're going to be 5 years from now based on the calendar that I see today. And if you're honest, the person that you are today is based on the person that you had built 2, 3, 4 years ago. Like you are the sum total of the habits and patterns that you had 2, 3 years ago. And so if you want to change the trajectory of your life, you have to change the patterns and the routines of your life. And so if you don't change something in your routine, you won't change something in the output or what your results are. And so spotty routines is one of the biggest ways that most people play small. Let me jump to the third one. Poor personal development habits. You have not brainwashed yourself yet. When you have poor personal development habits, it means that you have not learned and developed enough to become the person that the life that you desire wants. So the life that you have, who you are, is based on who you've become. The life that you have, you've attracted based on who you become. And so if you're not sure about the life that you have and you don't like the life you have, guess what? You attracted that life by who you are and who you've become. And so if you want a better life, if you want a different life, you have to change the person that attracted that kind of life. And it's not somebody else's fault. It's not somebody else's doing. It's you who attracted that kind of life. And so you got to change your personal development habits. You've got to start reading different books. You've got to start ingesting different information. You've got to start applying different practices and different disciplines and different routines into your life to become a different person. And here's the fourth one: fear of failure. This one is huge. Fear of failure is a huge thing, one of the major things that holds a lot of people back. Let's talk about failure for a second. The stats, so it turns out that 85% of what subjects, there was a study done, and the study said that 85% of what subjects worry about never actually happened. And with the 15% that did happen, 79% of subjects discovered that they either could handle the difficulty better than expected, or the difficulty taught them a lesson worth learning. So what this essentially is saying is that 97% of what you worry over is not much more than a fearful mind punishing you with exaggerations and misconceptions. I repeat that again. What this study shows is that 97% of what you worry over is not much more than a fearful mind punishing you with an exaggeration or misperceptions. 97% of what you worry about ain't happening, and it's a misconception, it's a misperception, it's an exaggeration. Yo, are you a Christian entrepreneur looking for a supportive community to help you grow your business? Then I think you should check out Entrepreneur Build. It's lit over here. No, for real. At Entrepreneur Build, we believe that entrepreneurship is a calling, and we're dedicated to empowering Christian entrepreneurs to fulfill that call. Whether you're just starting out or you're looking to take your business to the next level, We offer one-on-one coaching, group coaching, and access to a community of like-minded individuals who are passionate about making a difference in the world. The best part is that Entrepreneur Build is a community built on Christian values. Our coaches are experienced entrepreneurs who knows what it takes to build a successful business. And we're committed to helping you build a business that reflects your values, make a positive impact on the world, and get to the bag. So if you're ready to take your business to the next level and join a community of Christian entrepreneurs, we want to help you make a difference. Head over to pivotbiz.com/build to learn more and join our community. That is www.pivotbizz.com/build to learn more and join our community today. I'll see you on the inside. All right, let's talk about this routine really quick. So failure, if you look at it from a gym routine perspective, you go to the gym and you plan to work out to failure. You plan to push your body to failure. And the goal is that once you fail, you now know your limit and you now know how to build and what to build upon, right? It is your muscle failure that actually tells you where the work begins. And if we looked at life like that the failure actually tells you where the work begins, you would stop looking at failure in negative ways. You would actually embrace failure. You would pursue failure. You would move towards anything that helped you fail faster. Because what if I told you the life that you wanted was on the opposite side of your fourth or fifth failure? And most people don't tell you like that, but that's actually what happens. Like the life that you desire is on the other side of the sixth or seventh failure. And so if you knew that, if you knew that everything that you desire was on the other side of the seventh failure, you would rush through the first six. You would say, hey man, I'm going to fail really quickly because I know everything that I desire is on the other side of the sixth failure. It's on the seventh thing that I attempt. But that's like, I wish we knew that number. I wish we knew the number of times we needed to fail before we were successful. But there is a number. I want to let you know that there is a number of failures that you will have to experience, heartaches, pain that you may have to experience before you finally win at the level that you have vision for. And so don't run from it. Don't misinterpret the potential and the power of failure. Failure has gotten a bad rap. Failure is so positive. Failure, it doesn't feel like it in the moment, but failure is so important to every success that you've ever made. Truthfully, most of the successes that you've had has been on the backside of some kind of failure. And so this is huge, right? Fear of failure has held so many people back. Let me jump to number 5. Number 5 is the opinions of others, right? There's two things, procrastination and perfectionism. I hear a lot of people identifying with this. They say, I'm a procrastinator or I'm a perfectionist. And when you say I'm a procrastinator, it's not that you're a procrastinator. It's really that you don't have hope in a positive ending. Like when you procrastinate on something, the thing that's at the end of it, you don't have a high enough prize at the end. So it's the last thing that you're doing. You're procrastinating about it. You don't want to take action on it. You don't want to finish it. But if I told you, hey, on the other end of you knocking out this thing that you don't desire to do, you would get $2 million. I'm confident that if you're listening to this podcast, that you'll be like, yo, I'm taking action on that right now. I'm going to, whatever that is, I'm going to just move everything on my calendar. I'm going to throw away all the excuses and I'm going to take action. What's the difference? The difference is you have a positive expected ending on the other side of the action. So procrastination doesn't exist. Let's talk about perfectionism. Perfectionism is truly not real. Like perfectionism, what we call perfectionism is really, I've got an anxiety and I've got a fear of pleasing people. And so to me, it has to be perfect for me to release it because my value is in the opinions of others and what other people say about it and what other people think. And so when it's not perfect, I'm afraid that other people won't like it. Other people won't like me, and they'll attach my work to my personal value. And so that means everything that I do has to be perfect. If nobody else looked, if nobody was looking, you would be moving on things and you wouldn't become a perfectionist. But your perfectionism is rooted in your fear and anxiety. It's rooted in the default that you care about what other people think. And so you got to know that, man, you're building a legacy whether you realize it or not, and that somebody's watching you. Maybe you have children. Maybe you have a niece or nephew. Maybe there's somebody watching you play small. And if you don't change this playing small, right, you will become and you will begin to build a pattern, and you'll be able to you'll be showing people what playing a small life actually looks like, right? And so I just want to encourage you in that, man. Like, you do not have to play small. That playing big and playing small is literally the difference between a decision that you get to make. You can make a decision. You know what? I'm going to play small. You can make a decision. I'm going to play big. Really, the difference between the two is the decision that you decide to make. It's your decision. And so I just want to encourage you, man, that like, don't play small, right? And to look at the ways in your life that you may be playing small. I know we're kind of hitting to the middle of the year. People start to get lackadaisical on their goals. They stop focusing on things. They stop dreaming big. They stop thinking big. I want to recalibrate that in you. I want to revive that in you. I want to encourage you in that man, you can continue to live a big life and you can continue to play big, right? And don't fall for the prey and the patterns and the routines of mediocrity and mundaneness that's always chasing you. All right. And so, man, that's all I have for you in this episode, man. I really appreciate you for checking out and hanging on. If you listened to this episode this far, I really encourage you. I hope that this message was really good for you. I hope it blessed you. Man, if it did, continue to share this podcast. We'd love for you to continue to share it and to repost it and place it on social media and all that kind of stuff. But what we do about here is that we believe that life is all about the pivots, and those who decide to make the pivots decide to become successful. I will see you in the next episode. Peace.